Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, college football fans, Ohio State fans, just fans in general across the nation and around the world. This is Tim May with the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. And Clay, it's been a while since I did a podcast prefacing on a week when Ohio State is going to play in the Big Ten championship game. First time since 2020, Ohio State is going back to the Lucas Oil House after winning, by the way, at the Big House. You and I were both there at the Big House when Ohio State throttled Michigan 27-9 this past weekend.
I like the word bullied.
Yeah. Four-game losing streak to Michigan is over. For the first time since 2019, Ohio State beats Michigan, and the Michigan fans were all keeping up going with how long it's been since they beat Michigan, even though in 2020 Michigan opted not to play in the game, because of COVID. But I think still made it to a bowl game. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But the bottom line is
the streak is over.
The bottom line is the streak is over,
and
the backpack has been removed from Ryan Day's back. Although as coolly and calmly as he took it,
yeah,
that's been the name of the game for this Ohio State football team all year. They're number one in the country in the college football playoff committee rankings of last week. They're going to stay that way this week. And the number two team is unbeaten Indiana, which it has been for the last several weeks, unbeaten Indiana. And they're going to play in Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis on Saturday night at 8 p.m. That's when the game comes. The broadcast comes on the air. Who knows what time they'll kick off? But the bottom line is, for the first time since 2020, Ohio State's going back to Lucas Oil, a place where they had a standing reservation for those many years in a row. And they never, like Ryan Day said, you never took for granted going to that game. You sure didn't take for granted winning it. And this promises to be, I think you'd have to say, this is the biggest matchup of the season in the nation. Ohio State started the season number 3 in the AP poll, number 2 in the coaches poll against number 1 Texas, and people went gaga over that one. They should be going gaga over 1 versus 2 in the college football playoff committee rankings on Saturday night. Agreed.
Make this the national championship game. It's 1 versus 2. Let's settle it on Saturday night and call it a day.
Isn't that what people said back in 2006
Bingo.
For the game of the century, there 1 versus 2?
There you go.
Ohio State versus Michigan, and it was a hell of a game. And then both teams, I think, lost their bowl games. Ohio State lost the national championship game to Florida, led then by a coach named Urban Meyer, who was on his way to acclaim before he showed up at Ohio State. What was that? 6 years later. But no, but this idea that the Big Ten championship game, who cares about it? It should be done away with. This flies right in the face of that argument.
Completely. Yeah, I mean, I wrote all this crap down about Ohio State.
Read it.
Ohio State dominated Michigan. Time of possession, 2-1, 40-20. They ran. The third quarter drive was a thing of beauty.
Third quarter going in, and then in the fourth quarter.
20 plays, 12 minutes, ending with a field goal.
That's a whole quarter in high school.
No doubt. And the protection, I mean, to me, key, there's so many, but the protection for Julian, 0 sacks. Tim, can you guess on 26 dropbacks how many pressures Michigan got?
No, I'm thinking 3 or 4 because I saw him scramble some.
2.
Really?
2.
I thought he had more than. I thought they had more than that. But
2 out of 26.
Obviously, he had a scramble for a first down one time, which was
true.
Choice.
Yeah, and then when it counts for the Wolverines, 1 of 9 on third down, 0 on fourth down, and as you said, the 2,191 day streak is officially stricken from the record.
Dude, one of the great plays in Ohio State Michigan game, the game history.
I know you loved
was
it.
the 4th and 5 from the 35-yard line when Ohio State was looking to gain control of the game after a shaky start, offensive start. Then they drive to field after Michigan jumps up 6-0. Michigan drives to a field goal and then gets an interception off Julian Sayin, just his 5th interception thrown of the year. And Ohio State's got to reciprocate, and they drive, and all of a sudden it's 4th and 5. And at the 35-yard line of Michigan, what do?
They go for the
Jeremiah
groceries.
Smith playing for the first time after missing the previous game, and Carnell Tate. By the way, in my opinion, oh my goodness, the announcement they made at the beginning of the game, Julian Sayin and Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, was, look, I've got these 2 guys I'm throwing to now again, and you don't have these guys. You don't have anything like these guys. First pass was to Carnell Tate, incomplete. Second pass pretty much was to Jeremiah Smith, interception, big whoopee. It's still announced. Ohio State's throwing the ball down the field to these guys, despite your defense. And then from there on, it was a tour de force by the Ohio State offense. Didn't score, had to kick two field goals. And you know what? As much as we made of that 20 play drive, it took up 12 minutes. Man, my numbers are too many in my head. 20 play drive that took up 12 minutes. Ryan Day pointed out they didn't score a touchdown on that. So this idea that they just knocked Michigan out and that Michigan pretty much surrendered on that drive is not accurate. They forced Ohio State to kick a field goal. So
but
that wasn't exactly acquiescing. But the bottom line is they couldn't get off the field, and then they at least forced a field goal. And you can say, well, that doesn't matter. Well, Ohio State took it as victories when they forced 2 field goals to start the game. So
sure.
But yeah, Ryan Day was bummed out that they didn't score a touchdown on that. And
but it made it a 3-score game, if I'm not.
It made it a 3-score game. That's not the point. The point was that was the knockout blow. And in fact, Michigan was still throwing punches. I mean, they at least forced a field goal in that regard. But the play of the game, 4th and 5, 35-yard line, Julian Sayin, play action, boom. Here's Jeremiah Smith, runs a little route down the right sideline, cuts right, and lays it right in there to him, and then he catches the ball, cuts up the sideline. People can argue about as he got to the goal line whether he bobbled the ball, and by the time he regained control of it, he was stepping out of bounds in the end zone and should have been a touchback. They looked at that on replay and obviously said no, that was not the case. Touchdown, Buckeyes. That was one of the great plays in the game history. Agreed.
I agree with you. Yeah, it just gave them a lot of breathing room. It showed that they were not coming there to fool around.
Well, it gave them the lead for the first time. That was the main thing.
Yeah, 10-6, right?
Yeah.
And so
that's not breathing room, but at least it's wiggle room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Sayin was just getting warmed up.
Yeah, just saying. Just saying. 3 touchdown passes, ladies and gentlemen.
Carnell Tate
to his 3 starting wide receivers. 3 touchdown passes. Go ahead.
No. Just and the ball to Brandon Ennis when he sort of used the tight end,
Max Clare.
Thank you, and snuck up right behind him
on a slant.
Boom, quick. It was like a 4-yard throw.
As I called it on my Twitter thing, I think I said he snuggled up to Max Clare. It was what I call an illegal rub, and
right,
because the defender had to run around Max Clare and the guy that was guarding Max Clare to stay in there with Brandon Ennis. We did a great job before the play, kind of selling a couple of things, and then of course the deep ball to Carnell Tate. Yeah, Carnell Tate posed for an instant, and he deserved that pose. Beautiful. What was that 50-yard pass touchdown? Right on the money. In my opinion, all those plays we just mentioned put Julian Sayin at the lead going into the final weekend of the season, the championship weekend for the Heisman Trophy, and set up this ridiculous showdown between unbeaten Ohio State and unbeaten Indiana. Yes, Indiana's for real, just like I said back in the summer. Fernando Mendoza, Indiana's quarterback, and Julian Sayin, I think, are considered the top 2 candidates for the Heisman. You can throw Jeremiah Love in there, the running back from Notre Dame, but the shootout in Lucas Oil is going to determine the Big Ten champion and probably the Heisman Trophy winner. Do you agree?
Yes, I would agree. I do want to mention this in the post game. I thought Day really, could have gone off and done this and done that, but he instructed Sharon Moore, this is how we're going to handle the post game right now. You guys move over. We'll be here. We're not planting any flag. And then he went to the podium and he says, we're going to win with humility. I'm standing and Ross Bjork is seated right on my left. And I looked at him and it was kind of like, that's our guy. It was like, that's how you just very classy. And yeah,
just a year ago,
a
year ago, the way the scene was different was unbelievable. Ross Bjork had a true conundrum because Ross Bjork really likes Ryan Day, thinks he's what college football head coaching should be all about. But man, the pressure was coming on big time after they had lost their fourth straight to Michigan. I mean, it's crazy. Well, still crazy when you think about a guy who had only lost 10 games as a head coach could have been in jeopardy. But you know what, big time donors, et cetera, they talk and everybody else walks. I mean, it really is that. And you look around the country, that's what's happened. I mean, look at Lane Kiffin going from Ole Miss to LSU, even though Lane Kiffin's team, Ole Miss, has had his best year ever and is headed to the college football playoffs. And of course, once he got took the LSU job, Ole Miss folks said, hey, see you later. Yeah. Get out of here. And, but that's how screwed up the college football landscape schedule is, that decisions like that have to be made in the midst of the greatest moment for both the team and their head coach.
Well, what's crazier, well, no, about as crazy, but I see this is Monday after the game that the pundits and Wolverine Nation says when we kick in fall, Sharon Moore is officially on the hot seat. What is this? His second or third year?
Because
you lose one, but
there's the modern times, baby.
That's it.
Well, he hadn't lost just one; he lost 3 this year.
I'm saying, but at 9-3,
right?
But you lose the game, and now,
right?
Hey, we're looking to replace you.
I think a lot of people think they have more of a voice than they really do, because anybody can get on Twitter or social media and say whatever they want. What you got to keep your head to the ground on is, what are the big boys saying? And Michigan was a year away. Anybody could see that as they played this year.
Oh, sure.
Especially their probably overpaid freshman quarterback. He's got talent, but man, in the biggest games, he didn't look like it, or they didn't have a plan for him. Let's put it that way. I mean, when you're 12 games in, you're not a first-time starter. You're really not a freshman anymore. But boy, their offense just, for one of another term, stunk after those first couple of possessions. I mean, how many yards did they have total in the second half?
Well, they had 162, 63.
But it was
maybe.
Like they had
not many.
No, it was crazy.
0 rushing yards.
Yeah.
Well, Tito, our operations guy, we were chatting before we got on here, and I said, I'm wondering if Bryce Underwood is thinking, I got to go somewhere to be developed. And he said, what if Lane Kiffin comes after the young fellow?
Well, we'll see.
He lures him back.
He was committed to LSU at one point.
Yeah.
And, of course, I don't know what his contract says, with that big big NIL deal he got. I mean, I would think Michigan would take him to the court, whatever you want to say, to hang on to him, if in fact that even pops up.
What is Bryce?
We'll see.
What is Bryce Underwood's buyout?
I have no idea. That would be the fine print.
Yeah.
But anyway, so on the little Zoom call we had with Ryan Day on Sunday, quite a few questions, but I boiled down to like this one, because he was asked whether, considering Ohio State's number 1, Indiana's number 2, and it's going to stay that way in the college football playoff rankings, because of course Texas A&M got beat.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Alabama should have gotten beat, but didn't. But they're playing for the SEC championship. You got Georgia, and Alabama now is the SEC's best hopes. We'll see if Alabama loses, if they get left out. Probably not. But the bottom line is, there's been this conjecture all along that supposedly the championship games should not affect where you end up going. You're standing in the college football playoff pairings since you're playing an extra game and the other, like in the Big Ten, the other 16 teams in the Big Ten are not.
Well, don't play
For
them
example.
anymore. This is a good chance to, hey, check it out next year. Get rid of them.
No.
Let's move on.
This is 1 versus 2. This is for the Heisman Trophy and the Big Ten Championship Trophy. Are you kidding me?
I said
games
next
don't hardly
year.
just
I said next year.
do away with one of the middle games of the year that don't matter at all.
Okay. There's a
Or go to that
possibility.
realm where you're talking about where, you may expand the size of the playoff. It looks like it's not going to happen next year unless there's some kind of epiphany in the next month and a half before they meet again to get on this thing. But, the idea that you would also have a playoff for the third and fourth berths from the Big Ten, the third place team would play the sixth place team. Fourth would play fifth for that, maybe 2 more berths in the guaranteed berths in the college football playoff pairings. If that comes along, then, it'd be an interesting weekend to watch football. But I digress. Bottom line is, should they both be guaranteed their spots now, no matter what happens on Saturday night? Let's just see what Ryan Day had to say about that.
The playoff. Yeah, I really haven't even been following that, but I did talk about it a little bit yesterday with Ross, just trying to get an idea. Like, I don't even know who 3 was or 4 was, quite honestly, because it doesn't really matter to us. I was just so focused on winning that game last week. But when you look at it, yeah, I mean, they say that you're not supposed to be penalized for losing in the conference championship game. So you have the 1-2 seed, and so I think, yeah, both would deserve to get a first round bye. But I also think it matters when you're, the 1 or the 3 or 4 because of who you play. So I think it's important to win this game and be the 1 seed. It's going to help your chances. Everything matters, and so we want to make sure we win that. And then, yeah, going back to what you said about Indiana, yeah, I mean, it's a team now that has been winning at a high level for 2 years. So there'll be no moment too big for them. They'll be ready to go.
Yeah. Anybody thinks Indiana's backpedaling into this game is not paying attention. How about this, man? They're in the college football. They're in the Big Ten championship game for the first time ever. The last time they went to the Rose Bowl. And by the way, if they win this, they go to the Rose Bowl. The winner's going to go to the Rose Bowl.
Right.
Was 1967 with John Pont, et cetera. And yeah, what a rags to riches. I mean, maybe not rags, but like lower middle class clothes to, big time clothes.
Moving up to the east side.
Yeah, moving east side to a big deluxe apartment in the sky. Kurt Cignetti has got it going on.
Yeah.
Kurt Cignetti's got it going on. But it's interesting.
It's meteoric. That's for darn sure.
Yeah. And, if you got to play in this game, play in it, man. Take care of business, as the old saying goes. And, speaking of that, let's hear what a couple of Ohio State players pretty much had to say about being in this game. Luke Montgomery, Ohio State's left guard, this time a year ago, he was stepping up and was part of that surge to the 4 straight games to the national championship after they lost to Michigan. But let's see what he has to say about playing in the Big Ten championship game.
Guy, thanks for having me. First off, just want to say I'm super excited to play in Indy. I know growing up as a kid, just watching that game and just watching how electric the environment is something I dreamed about playing in as a young kid, and now we have the opportunity too. So I'm just super thankful and super excited.
Yeah, obviously is. There's a trophy up for grabs, for goodness sakes. Number 2, there's 18 teams in the league now. Most of these teams never see each other. Ohio State played Indiana.
There you go.
Almost every year
it's the oddest
for a long time.
Thing.
They didn't play them this year because of the quirks in the scheduling. And it would be a shame if they didn't play each other. And it would be really funny. But see, when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, I mean, I was born in 54, but, Alabama played Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl back in, I think it was the 62 or 63 season. And by the way, it was before the Superdome. And they played on New Year's Day, and there was snow on the sides because it snowed big time in New Orleans.
Was that a Tulane Stadium?
Old Tulane Stadium. Yeah, they called it Sugar Bowl Stadium also. But the bottom line is they didn't play. There was, I think there were only 8 teams in the Southeastern Conference and they didn't play each other. I mean, they only played like a 6 or 7 game, league schedule. And, it was a hell of a game. It was a hell of a matchup. Ohio State won. I mean, Alabama won 12-7, if I remember correctly. And the Alabama kicker's name was Tim Davis. So I always thought,
that was you.
Me being a Alabama fan at that point, I was thought, guy named Tim, man, pulled it out for him. He kicked 4 field goals. Boring as hell game. But the point is, it mattered because it kind of settled things in the Southeastern Conference that year.
Okay.
Now, fast forward, they still don't play each other. Everybody doesn't play each other. I think it's great that this game is happening. And on top of that it's 1 versus 2, and both teams are undefeated.
This kind of game you dream of. But it's like you said, the conference is so now 18 members. You just, we played them 3 years ago, and it's been a while. We got to find some tape on that. Yeah, it's odd.
Yeah, but no, the point is you need to settle this on the field. Now, and the point that was being made earlier with Ryan Day was the fact that both of these teams, they should be assured of getting a bye in the first round of the playoffs because they're 1-2 going into this game, not 1-5, not 1-7. They're 1 versus 2. And if the committee sticks to kind of like the guidelines is thrown out there, but guidelines are made to be broken, there's a chance that the loser could slip into the 5, 6, 7 category, which means they wouldn't get a bye, which means they would have to play 4 more games to win a national championship, whereas the winner would only have to play 3.
So this rule is certainly not set in stone.
It's not a rule. Yeah.
I mean, there is
believe me, if you've ever heard the committee chairman and all these other people talk on it, they vacillate. The rules change as they see fit, and it's kind of like sitting in front of a monarchy where the king just makes up the rules as he goes to a certain extent. But yeah, I think both these teams have, in my opinion, deserve a bye in the first round of the college football playoff. That way takes the pressure off in terms of this game. Right. But as Ryan Day said, not really, because they want to win it, because they want to be the number 1 seed in the college football playoff, which means, projections are showing probably Oklahoma playing Notre Dame is the 8-9 game in this upcoming playoff, because neither one of them are in the postseason right now. They're not playing for their league championships because Notre Dame doesn't have a league. It has a quasi league, but they don't play for the championship, the ACC. But they don't play each. So it looks like they would be an 8-9 matchup, and then the winner would play number 1, which would be Ohio State in the Rose Bowl.
Well, it's a championship in and of itself, and that's, I think, number 2 on their goal sheet.
Correct.
To get to this thing, it
wasn't just to get to this thing; it was to win it.
To win it. So they got the number 1 goal. Here's number 2, and I would agree with the notion neither one should be penalized for losing this game.
Yeah,
but they want the trophy. They want to run the table. So 1 is done. Got to get 2. Then they'll get on to the playoff.
Now you get it. So you're all for it now, right? Is that what I'm reading?
I'm not. No,
is that what I'm hearing?
I'm good if they get rid of the Big Ten championship game. Get rid of every conference championship game.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not for that. So I don't know. I mean, at least conference championship games give you some definition of who the best team was in each particular league. I'm for that instead of just having a booyah base that you're going to dip into and get your seeding out of based on, well, I thought this team looked really good running out of the I formation last week.
Well,
Jimmy,
at some point, it just keeps going. Okay. I'm from the Urban Meyer school. We've got enough games. These guys are now professional athletes. They're being paid, and I'm just looking out for their physicality.
Yeah. There's an argument there. Absolutely. I mean, Ohio State was a knock on wood after they lost 2 of their starting offensive linemen for the rest of the year during the season. They were pretty much not pain-free, but they got through a 4-game slug for the national slog, I guess is what it is, for the national championship. But you can't count on that every year. And so that is what it is. Tell you what, let's get now to some comments, our regularly scheduled programming, which is Mondays with Matt Wilhelm, one of my favorite topics of the week.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say I enjoy that more than being here with you. That would be unfair to you. I'm not saying it's not true, but it would be unfair. And I'm messing with you.
We could Zoom the rest of the show after you get to Mondays with Matt.
But I get it. But
was Matt smiling, I bet?
Well, Matt had like an upside down smile or a twisted smile because Lakewood St. Ed's got beat.
They're out.
Got beat pretty well by Old Tennessee Orange.
Orange is Levi Davis.
Yeah,
quarterback
in the Ohio high school big school playoffs. Yeah. And so his son Mason, who's going to sign with Ohio State on Wednesday, part of that highly ranked recruiting class. His that's the thing about the playoffs, man. You lose, boom, your season's over.
Bingo.
Yeah, it's called sudden death. But
right.
But we talk a little bit about that and about kind of the bittersweet moment it was for him and Mason after that game was over, but also his thoughts on the Ohio State beating Michigan, and he has some really good thoughts about just the way Ohio State has played this year and is playing now. So without further ado, let's get to our little Mondays with Matt. It's Mondays, the Tim May Show featuring Clay Hall. And of course, that always means also featuring Matt Wilhelm. Matt Wilhelm, welcome back to the Tim May Show, my man. I know you had a bittersweet sort of weekend. Your St. Ed's got eliminated in the high school playoffs in Ohio, yet your beloved alma mater, of which you're going to be going to probably all the home games.
Yes, sir.
From now on, again, Ohio State took care of business, as I like to say, up at Michigan. Resounding victory, 27-9. Not even, if they hadn't spotted them a couple of 6 points there at the beginning, it would have been a real thumping. But number one, welcome back to the show. And number two, what was your take on the Ohio State game first?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, first and foremost, always great to join you and Clay Hall on this show. It's a great way to start my week, regardless of what happens on Friday night, which was unfortunate. But
wait a minute, let me interrupt you. Actually,
yeah.
Clay has joined us. If people are keeping up chronologically.
Okay. All right, there you go.
We've been doing this for a while. Go ahead.
That's right. But again, I'll just say, after the St. Edward loss on Friday night, I looked over at Mason. Of course, he's emotional after playing his last high school football game, and I went, well, now it's not your boys and it's not my boys. It's like it's our boys. Better take care of business tomorrow at 12 noon up in Ann Arbor. And I think it was just very spot on performance from what we've seen out of Ohio State all year. And that's on both sides of the ball. The efficiency out of Julian Sayin, the improvement in the run game, to be averaging, 5.5 plus yards per carry, regardless of who the ball carrier is. I thought, again, a dominant offensive line performance, both in the run game and their ability to protect Julian Sayin as he was, scot-free and clean most of the night or the whole day. And then I also think, and it's redundant because we talk about it each and every week, but and I know the Julian Sayin early pick didn't help, but it was kind of a bend, don't break mentality out of that defense and with Matt Patricia and these men to go out and kind of like just take and figure out how Michigan was going to attempt to attack who we are and what we do. And they moved the ball in the red zone multiple times, and we just, constrict, Underwood and that Michigan offense and force them to kick field goals while we got things figured out on the other side of the ball. But to your point, resounding victory. I think the score was not indicative of the BTA that everybody's talking about on social media and across the pundits, who talk about college football. And I read an article this morning, and it's just like the same old kind of like boring, successful, dominant victory by an Ohio State team that now when you look at the teams making their way into the college football playoff and it's figuring itself out, it's like Georgia was lackluster against Charlotte. and he kind of like lackluster against Georgia Tech. So is that a team that can beat Ohio State? I don't know. They're talented enough with great coaching. You look at Bama and what they've done against some ranked opponents. They'll give Ohio State a run for the money. And I think, frankly, what I thought was a very kind of like great observation and a great talking point was, is this Big Ten championship football game an opportunity? And I'm not trying to say that, Ohio State's just going to run away and beat Indiana, because they're the number 2 team in the country, undefeated, and deserve to be there and deserve to be mentioned amongst, the top teams in college football. But if Ohio State were to beat Indiana, is this a snapshot for Curt Cignetti and his staff to kind of like unravel Ohio State to a certain extent by maybe, like losing this Big Ten championship game, but then maybe seeing them again in 2 or 3 weeks, or 4 weeks at some point in the college football playoff and fix some of what happened? Because I do think Indiana is as talented and as well coached and is playing as good as anybody in the country to make some type of run in the college football playoff.
Yeah, this game has all kinds of intrigue. I mean, number 1 versus number 2 probably will decide the Heisman Trophy. Either Julian Sayin or Fernando Mendoza. I like saying his name. Fernando Mendoza. I've gotten into arguments with people about, you don't need the conference championship game anymore, blah, 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 the Jeopardy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just going, dude, I wouldn't pass up. And even Curt Cignetti said this on Sunday. I wouldn't pass up seeing this game for anything. You got 1 versus 2, both undefeated. Indiana's got 2 losses over 2 seasons, 1 to Ohio State, 1 to Notre Dame, both of whom played for the national championship last year. Both of those losses came last year. They won, I think, arguably a tougher schedule in the Big Ten than Ohio State did, up until this point. Just right on down the line, it's like, why wouldn't you want to see this game? Why wouldn't you want to see a Big Ten championship?
That is a very outside looking in perspective. That's from media folks who get paid 24/7, 365 to talk about stuff.
Come on with stuff, yeah.
And sometimes the stuff is irrelevant and it goes in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
But from an inside looking out perspective, when you talk about a Big Ten football team or an SEC football team, one of the big goals, amongst beating your rival, right, which I know that was rivalry weekend, and some rivalry games have happened earlier in the season. It's winning the game, and that for us is Ohio State, Michigan. That could be Auburn, Alabama. That could be the Egg Bowl. I mean, that could be the Iron Bowl. That it's whatever it is. But then it's winning your conference championship.
Yes,
and I think a lot of that has to do with, again, whatever's left of the tradition and pageantry in college football, is because by doing that, you weren't always necessarily guaranteed to go play for or at least have an opportunity to go play for a national championship. So it still means a lot to a lot of people to go win your conference championship. And I think so many people look at it, from a pessimistic standpoint instead of an opportunistic standpoint, where it's like, well, what if we go play a really good team and we lose?
Yeah.
As opposed to, let's just keep doing what we've been doing all damn year and go win, prepare and win and play our best and propel ourselves, into this,
Right.
Again, to stay undefeated and to project yourself into whomever you're going to play, but in a place of comfort by taking care of the business that you're expected to do, especially at a school like Ohio State.
Do you at this point, you've been following this, closely. I mean, one of the reasons because you're on the Tim May show every Monday. The other reason is you're a big time football fan who played football at the highest level and won championships. Do you believe that Ohio State and Indiana at this point, in being both undefeated, 1-2 in the college football playoff rankings now for several weeks, do you believe that they both should get a bye, meaning one of the top 4 spots in the college football playoff at this point, based on the fact they're the only remaining undefeated teams going into the conference championship weekend, which, the committee has said many times should not really, unless you get blown out, should not really affect
Sure.
Because everybody else isn't facing that extra round of jeopardy. What's What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. And I think it all depends. And I think, the committee kind of evolves, year over year. This is the second year of the 12-team playoff. And I'm sure, they've already amended some of who gets in and why they get in.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure, each and every Tuesday night and then Wednesday morning when, again, national pundits or college football pundits talk about, is it data and analytics? Is it win-loss? Is it the eye test? Is it strength of schedule? What are those factors that go into who ends up where and why? And instead of talking around your question, answer it directly is I think a lot of it has to do with how the game, 1 versus 2, is played and pans out when the clock reaches 0. Not only win-loss, but the game flow, meaning was it a dogfight all game long for both teams and close and a field goal to win the football game or a defensive stop to get the ball back to just be able to take a knee in the victory formation and win the game. But it was close. And it looks like 2 of the top 4 teams in the country that can go make a run and beat any other 8, that get into or any other 10 rather that get into the college football playoff.
Yeah.
And then I think the other side of it is it's you look at the other games, the other conference championships that are going to be played. Because I referenced Georgia versus Charlotte and Georgia versus Georgia Tech, but if Georgia, goes in and boat races Bama, the number 10 team in the country, and wins in this massive fashion, or for that matter, Bama beats Georgia, number 10 beats number 4, and all of a sudden Bama looks like, Ohio State, Indiana, there's a loser in those 2 games. Georgia's going to get in, or maybe, Texas Tech's going to, beat BYU. They're going to jump into the top 4. So I think a lot has to do with what happens around this game and how this game plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course it is, because the human factor is going to come into play. The knee-jerk factor is going to come into play no matter whether you believe it or not, unless the committee, kind of like the NCAA tournament, basketball tournament, unless they just go into the weekend saying, these are 2 of our top 4 teams. We're not going to budge from that. Let's watch all these other games. You know what I mean? And that could happen.
Well,
I don't think it would let you know it, but go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think, in past years with, who got in and who played where, I think there's a human element to this committee and why it's a committee made up of personalities and ways of thinking that are from, different regions of the country to kind of not be biased to any one conference or any one team. And I think the one thing, even going back to the last year and this year, because it's going to be convoluted almost each and every year, and it's never going to be perfect, and somebody's going to be pissed off, right? Is I think it's way to not what makes the best tournament. It's who are the best 12 teams that individually, if they play well, can beat anybody else that's also in the tournament, and then do it again, and then potentially go win a national championship, And I think in some cases, not backing your way into a team that just has a nice resume, that you think deserves to be in, but then is going to get, boat raced by a blue blood, that has played really well all year, that might have a couple of blemishes, but, but again, boat races you in the first round of the playoffs, and you go, how did they get in, and why did they get in, and how do we fix it so that doesn't happen again? So it's always going to be a work in progress. But at the end of the day, I think 6 to 8 football teams have the best chance to go get hot and win a national championship, similar to the way that Ohio State did.
Yeah.
And I think it's this conference championship weekend is going to help play that out.
Did you feel as good Saturday about 3:00, 3:30 as you thought you would, with Ohio State snapping the 4-game losing streak to Michigan? Did you, as an alum, as a guy that spilt blood on the field for Ohio State, that beat Michigan twice, right?
Yes, sir. 2 times.
Did you feel as good? Well, I mean, what did you feel now that Ohio State got that monkey off its back?
I probably feel like a lot of, and again, I'm not so much the social media guy to go out and share my feelings on social media, but I think, Braxton and Cardell and Beanie and the guys that, that are a little bit more visual on social media that share that opinion. Matt Finkus is another guy who's on social media kind of talking smack a lot. So I'm a lot like Matt. I just keep it to myself. But I would say immense amount of satisfaction. I think it very quickly, at least for me, and I'm sure many Buckeye fans, erased what the last 4 games have been because, based on who you talk to, there was cheating in some, and there was, again, some other stuff that went down in other games. But I think this is another take that I heard on social media that I was like, oh, that makes sense. I also believe that the way this season went down, kind of just goes to show how infinitely better Ohio State is. And what happened last year in Columbus was just a fluke game. And it actually kind of like, it set a trap for Michigan fans and administrators to kind of keep Sharon Moore there and keep them on a path of, like, I'll call it like Big Ten upper tier mediocrity, if that makes sense.
I hear you.
So there's something vast that has to happen for that team. And I'm not just saying this because we just beat them. Like, again, Oklahoma, USC, and Ohio State, the 3 best teams on your schedule, embarrassed you in every facet of the game.
Yeah.
And if your goal at University of Michigan is to go, win the Big Ten and compete for a national championship, you've got some work cut out for you.
Yeah.
And I think that was what was made very, very clear. But again, immense amount of satisfaction. And then I think as the post-game stuff kind of played out, and you kind of turn off the television, the next game comes on, and then social media kind of fills you in on, like, the Michigan guys guarding the M, while every Buckeye player and coach could not give 2 shits about that M in the middle of the field. But it was about Buckeye Nation taking over the big house and us celebrating with our fans, because although it meant a lot, and although it had been 4 years and 1,000 and some days, like Dave Portnoy wants to tell everybody, since we beat them, when we took care of the business, it became just another game to a bigger goal for us.
Yeah.
And and that other goal, Tim, and you and I have talked about it, the last 4 years, that has been a void for us because of this game, is appearing in Indianapolis and competing for a Big Ten championship, which kind of brings our conversation full circle, because it still matters to the Buckeye players, the Buckeye coaches, Ryan Day, Buckeye Nation, and we'll go do this. And then the chips will fall where they may, because we're guaranteed a spot in the college football playoff to attempt to go back-to-back for a national championship.
That's right. And Ohio State has never been the champion of an 18-team Big Ten. Has a great shot at that.
That's right.
Wanted to ask you this. As you watched Ohio State play and you kind of alluded to this earlier, I mean, we saw them take care of business against Rutgers, matter-of-factly, without Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. Then all of us, Julian Sayin threw an interception on his second throw of the day or whatever it was. But his first 2 throws, one was to Carnell Tate and the other was to Jeremiah Smith. The point was, it was almost like a statement, like, look who I've got back and you don't have. Look who we've got that you don't have. And then all 3 starting wide receivers, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brandon Ennis, on a great little play there.
Yeah.
Touchdown where he snuggled up behind Max Clare and got open on that little quick slant at the goal line. All 3 starting wide receivers caught touchdown passes in the game. What we've always thought was the difference between Ohio State and anybody else was that wide receiver core, that starting wide receiver core.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, but the other thing is just how methodically Ohio State has taken care of business throughout this season. And then, of course, in the game, that was a microcosm of how this team is playing and how it's being coached. I'm just, I know I threw out about 10 things there, but
no, it's okay.
What's your general take on what the job Ryan Day and his staff have done with this group? I know there's like 5 questions at once. Sorry.
Yeah, well, fantastic. Well, I think even more so than essentially just the coaching staff, let's talk about the training staff as well, because there is much a part of our week to week flow on having players available and getting them recovered. And I think, going back now multiple weeks, Carnell Tate sat out multiple games. Jeremiah Smith was yanked out of the Rutgers game. Did not play in the Rutgers, but was yanked out of the UCLA game prior, after a few early receptions. And so and it's been a narrative probably after maybe 4 or 5 football games this football season about, the efficiency of the offense and Ryan Day playing long game, really having 4 running backs carry the football in most games. I know James Peoples did not have a carry against Michigan, but all 3
he got
other
in the
backs,
game though. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Right, and all 3 other backs, had multiple carries in the football game. So it's been this big master plan. And then to your point about this game, and what I loved about, and it's not arrogance is the wrong word. It's confidence. Is we're on at big noon kickoff at 12 noon in the greatest rivalry in all of sports. We're going to throw the football to the 2 players that everybody's been talking about all week.
Yeah.
And one in which that hasn't played, in almost a darn month.
Yeah.
And we're going to throw it to him on a deep ball. And I think it also just goes to show, we're going to come out and we're not only going to throw it to Carnell Tate, but we're going to know the coverage you're in. And we're going to try to hit you right in the mouth, right out of the gates by throwing it to our 2 best players on offense. And I think, and it's the second play of the game, the interception to Jeremiah Smith. I think it was also just a follow-up to, we kind of know what you're going to be in. We're going to throw it to our best player, and our best player is just going to make a play, and you can't stop us.
Right.
And I think it was probably it was a great play by the corner. So let's give him the credit by playing that route on Jeremiah, anticipating, that back shoulder or, jump ball to Jeremiah on the sideline very, very well. But I'm sure at least a dozen times in practice or walkthrough, that play was called, and they completed it 11 out of 12 in practice. So Brian Hartline and Julian Sain had immense confidence in Jeremiah's ability to go make that play, as he's always made all year and all week. But I think it was just we're going to show you, our opponent, we're going to show you, the nation. We're going to show you, Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson, we're better than these guys, and we're going to get the football to our best players, even if they know it. And we missed on a little overthrow to Carnell Tate. Now, of course, it was a little underthrown, but a great play by a defender against Michigan. So I just thought it was, it wasn't an FU. It was just exuding immense confidence by being back with our guys. And we're going to get them the football because they're difference makers in the game.
But it also, and it also exemplified Ryan Day. I mean, you never know if something works until it works, right? The Wright brothers built all kinds of facsimile or prototypes before they got the thing going, baby. But my point is, Ryan Day stuck to his guns this year about the process, about being methodical, about being drenched in preparation. I don't know, almost like a spray on deodorant. I mean, they're drenched in preparation so that when they took the field, it was businesslike with an edge. You always have more adrenaline in a game. I mean, to me, that's what has stood out most about this team so far is that methodical process approach, meaning we're going to keep everything the same every week. I think they'd like a better return flight than they got, but the game was won by then. But you know what I'm saying? But the point is, and it worked because
you're absolutely right, Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So here's the one thing that I take away from the season is, and again, only because we watch the Buckeyes week in, week out. I don't know if any other team has done this the way that Ohio State does, but we're probably the only one that's done it this way to be 12-0, is the number of players. I want to say 75% of our roster has contributed. I'll say 65% of our roster has contributed in some capacity in an undefeated, a Big Ten slate that's got us in the Big Ten championship game, on an undefeated slate that has us the number 1 team in the country at 12-0. But I just go to again, the gift of Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith missing games has allowed that next wave of 4-star, 5-star receivers to get real game action.
Yep.
The 5 running backs or 4 running backs that have played pretty consistently, most of the season, that's a gift. I'll even say, and it's not that we want to have anybody not playing well, but even Shabola at times being a little inconsistent. And then you see Padilla or Ian Moore or Van Sickle, we rotated those guys in who played very well in that spot. Great for the kid, great for the program. But then it also lights a fire under Shabola's ass to have to play better and fix it and solidify for when we need it most. And then I flip to the other side of the defense is Larry Johnson and Patricia are just rotating fresh bodies. We have 9 defensive linemen that probably play and contribute all year long. What a gift that is for a 16-game or 14 or 15-game football season. So all these things in the face of winning in the fashion that we have, maintaining the best statistic there is, which is a 0 in the loss column, and taking care of business while also playing a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Is such a gift both this season in the playoff run and also into next season as well. Not that I'm looking too far forward, but it is such a gift.
Last thing, Brian Hartline. Who knows really what the mechanics are of calling plays? I sent Brian Hartline a message. That's as good a play calling variety, and also when you got a nail and you're driving it, drive the nail, right?
Yep.
That I've seen in a long time. I thought the play calling in that game, and especially on that 20 play drive, and I know a lot of that was probably Ryan Day, but you know how coaches, man, as much as you love to have this ridiculous Air Force going for you, if you're a 5-star general, you also like the ground troops to just nothing's more dangerous than a soldier with his rifle. But I mean, that 20 almost all runs on that. Now they didn't get a touchdown out of it, and Ryan Day said, "Well, that leaves it short."
Right.
20 plays, 12 minutes.
Yep.
Which by the way, thank God, because you can't take TV timeouts. When except at the quarter break. But I mean, that was a tour de force. I think Brian Hartline has definitely emerged, man, as what we thought he could be.
He absolutely has. And I think what's the most satisfying about this for Buckeye fans is that's a dose of the Michigan medicine that has led to us all, sign stealing aside, has led to us not beating them the last 4 years.
Yep.
Is their ability to play great defense, limit our playmakers, dominate the time of possession, run it. It's so we gave them a dose of our medicine. And I think, the fact of the matter is, and again, and in some cases, that was maybe the same plan last year in Columbus.
Yep.
And it just didn't play out that way. And I think here's the last thing that I'll say, and it goes back to the Air Force ground game. I just talked about the ground game, but the Air Force. The one thing that you've seen all year long, and it's probably, and I'm going to rattle off Bo Jackson, but it's really much any back. So these backs check, release, and get out into the flat. Bo Jackson catches the football and is untouched for 6 to 8 yards. Why? Because the defensive backs and linebackers they're dropping so deep to get underneath the comebacks, to get underneath the digs, to get underneath the over routes with Jeremiah and Carnell and healthy. So it's like, it's the yin and the yang of this football team all year long. Again, constructed by Ryan Day and Brian Hartline. But to your point, to give props and kudos to Brian Hartline for, collectively being the mastermind of this, but then practicing it well enough, and then the boys go out and execute it well enough that you could just say, "Hey, I'm going to put it on your backs, dude. Like, let's go run out. Let's go run the ball. We're going to tell them 7 times in a row we're going to run the game. They're going to be 7 different runs, right?
Yeah.
Against 7 different fronts out of 7 different formations with shifts and motions. Like, hey, good on you, mate. Try to stop us, and they just couldn't. But I do think, again, the whole point of early drive success of Michigan, the back shoulder pick to Jeremiah Smith and not finishing that drive with a touchdown. And again, also redundant, leaves this staff and locker room with things to fix and get better at. And I think in some cases, it's, there's other teams that, want to blow people out 55-6, and you have this immense amount of satisfaction and you feel like there's nothing to fix. We rolled on both sides. There's a hunger and a business-like mentality about this football team and Coach Day that is different than any other year.
All right, last thing. I don't, my calling card, I always have 8 last things. No, but I do. The 4th and 5 call, the pass to Jeremiah Smith, was turned into a touchdown. Yeah, there was some conjecture about as he was crossing the goal line where they had, full possession of the ball after he'd run for 4 or 5 steps, and whether his foot stepped out of bounds while he was still. Who cares? They called it a touchdown. They reviewed it, called it a touchdown. My point is the audacity of that call in the game, a game you are going in having lost 4 in a row. The audacity of that call just spoke volumes about what this team has going for it. It methodically takes care of business. And yes, 5-7 times a game, there's also lightning strikes, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
how does that make you feel as an alum and stuff to see a team playing with that sort of not carefree but bravado?
I love it. And I'm sure it's a lot of the reason why, many people can't stand the Ohio State fan base, because we just have this immense bravado, which is a great word, and confidence about us can be perceived as arrogance. But when you expect to win every game, and thus far this season we have, and I think also in the fashion with which we have done it, leaves a lot of people speechless. And it's why they just don't really know what to say, what else to say about this football team, because each and every week it is very businesslike, and you can almost write the story of how the game is going to be won. It's going to be, negate the other team's offense, 1 in 10 on 3rd and 4th down was Michigan. So force them to work on 3rd down, no touchdowns, I'll say limit explosives, which we saw a few this season, which are, kind of, I'm talking about a few, like less than three or less.
Yeah.
But then also you can't score in the red zone, so you have to then say, well, we can't just chip away at them. You got to hit those lightning strikes in their own. But then on the flip side, the aggressive nature of Brian Hartline and Ryan Day to continue to push the ball down the field to the, two of the best receivers in all of college football.
Yeah.
So there's no recipe, at least not yet. And I think that's the challenge, and where I do believe Indiana is going to give us a run for our money, because I just have an immense faith. And it's not even, I know the Mendoza kid is the only name that I know on the entire Indiana team, but the guy's name who I do know is Kurt Cignetti. And again, he's a winner.
Yep.
He knows ball, fast, smart, relentless, or whatever that, whatever their mantra is there, they're going to bring it. And it's going to be different than last year. And so, and I think we need to be ready. And I'm not trying to say that we will not. I just think it's going to be business as usual, 1 week at a time. We took care of something immense last week in the game. And now we have another challenge that we haven't had to be up for in 4 years. That is now ahead of us in Indianapolis.
All right. We'll get together again next week, man. We'll figure out which, I've got to vote in the Heisman. We're not supposed to reveal it till after the Heisman's revealed and stuff, but I'll definitely give you a strong indicator of which way I'm leaning. I'm already leaning that way. I truly believe Ohio State has the better quarterback, but I also know Indiana has a better quarterback than it had a year ago. And that's what I said all along. What I liked about Indiana was they restocked at certain spots. They definitely upgraded at quarterback. This was going to be a better Indiana team than a year ago. And like I said, it might not show it because of the schedule they had to play, like at Oregon, for example. Penn State was supposed to be a test, and it ended up being a test for them. But the point is, they passed all these tests, and they're a better team than they were a year ago, like you just said. So I'm not surprised that we're sitting right here. I said this 5 weeks ago. This reminds me of I've never seen this actually, but of two big time oil tankers headed right at each other in the Suez Canal.
Absolutely. And that's the one
who's
thing
going to dodge.
Right. As it relates to Indiana. So Indiana, the school, might be in uncharted territory, attempting to win a Big Ten championship for the first time in God knows how many years. Right.
Yeah.
This is not for the guys that were with Cignetti, and it's a chunk of them, that were with him at James Madison and with him at at other places. This is not new for Kurt Cignetti to play in big games, to play in conference championships. And again, what beyond the conference championship is going to be new to Kurt Cignetti, but this is not new for him. This is not new for a lot of the guys that he's brought there, and I think it's why they have stepped into success the way that they have so quickly. It's because they're just really mirroring and following the lead of Kurt Cignetti, their head football coach.
Yeah. He didn't bring just a name with him. He brought a system with him, and he brought these guys that have been with him for a long time in the assistant coaching realm and stuff. And then he also proved they can be very good judges of talent, sometimes out of the bargain bin, but you can find great value in the bargain bin if you know what to look for. And clearly they had a vision in place, and I'm very impressed by what Cignetti has done, because I think he is sharp, man. And like you said, it doesn't mean they beat Ohio State, but it doesn't mean they can't beat Ohio State either, right?
Absolutely right. And I think I'm not trying to even discount, he hasn't done the most with the least, but I think his system is a winning system.
Yes.
He goes out and get guys that are selfless and buy in. And I think, again, to your point, he's just a ball coach,
Yep.
And he gets football players. And frankly, it's the players that the teams that do it best, that are doing it best. We're seeing it firsthand, watching our Buckeyes. It's Mark Pantoni and the recruiting staff evaluating players, bringing them in. They're not, because there's so much top end talent above them. They're not forced to play the young guys early. They play them when they're ready. And I think that's, again, and I think that's Indiana. And I think that's this football team. When you look at, what Caden Curry's been sitting behind for multiple years as a Buckeye, to see it through and have the senior year that he's had, and now potentially live out a dream of why he came to Ohio State, being a dude on defense, being a silver bullet, beating Michigan at Michigan, winning a Big Ten championship, and then competing in that tournament to go win a national championship. All those dreams are still ahead of them. And I think in Indiana, that school is in a rarefied place, but that team and its head coach are not.
Yeah. By the way, Kenyatta Jackson unleashed. Oh my goodness. I mean, both of those defensive ends, but Kenyatta, man, what a game he had on Saturday, right on down the line. Real quick, you guys lost in the
state
semifinals on Friday. From now on, Mason on Wednesday is going to sign financial, whatever they call it now. It's not NIL, it's our NLI. It's something else.
Oh, it's an NIL agreement. I actually have a copy of it right here. It is what do they call it? And then there's actually like the Big Ten. You sign your Schedule A athletics agreement is one is your one thing, and then the other one is like like you sign your Big Ten. Oh, here you go. Big Ten Athletics Scholarship Agreement.
There you go.
Will also be signed Wednesday. And again, lost Friday night to a very well-coached Olentangy Orange team. Last year we lost to Olentangy Liberty. They went on to win state championship. So to say you got beat by the champion, kind of, a little salt in the wound, but it is what it is. Wish those guys nothing but the best. We were not at our best, and so we deserve to lose. But that being said, we're still in the not feel sorry for myself, but we're still in the sulking, emotional window of high school career being over. Silver lining, to your point, is, Wednesday for a lot of young men, not just Mason, they're signing this like agreement or letter of intent to a said university. In our case, he's going where I went, which is extremely special.
Yep.
And he becomes a Buckeye, and then it's, conversations with Mick Marotti about strength training over the next, 30 to 45 days. While they're on their playoff run, these boys can still get to work, as early enrollees, and as well as Tyler Bowen, sending over some drill tape. So we're, we're going to take a little time, let the body recover, but get right back to work.
Yeah. But like he said, like you told me before we started the show today, he came to the sideline at one time. He played 90 something plays out of 100 and something.
Yeah, I think it was 98 snaps out of like 104 snaps in the football game.
And like you said, he said, you kind of don't want it to end, right? I mean, it's high school.
Yeah, it is. It's as a coach on the field, and I thank Coach Lombardo for the opportunity to join the staff, 2 years ago, because I've had a front row seat, to my son's varsity football experience and this rise, while also coaching a bunch of other young men at St. Ed's who are going to move on and have amazing memories, but also amazing careers at other places. And when the game was kind of over but still being played, and we know what that feeling's like, I was dad and coach at the same time, because I have a son who's sacrificed a lot for his team and wanted to win a state championship more than anything and go out the right way. Getting emotional to me, saying, I just don't want it to be over. I just don't want it to end.
Yeah.
And but it was a clear end in sight, and there was nothing I could do but give him a hug and tell him, walk with your head held high and your chin up, because you played your ass off, and you've been an amazing leader and a great player for this football team. And there's a lot of players take that helmet off for one last time at the high school level and never put it on again. And he's one of the blessed, lucky ones to be able to continue doing it at the next level.
Okay. I was going to talk about this now, but I'm going to save it for next week. Let's talk about now the transition of being the father of a football player who's out of high school now, going to be out of high school. Now it's a business. Now you take part in revenue sharing. You can take, well, thanks to the goodness of the OHSAA and the injunction, even high school, but I'm talking about from now on, it's legal to get paid to play football. We're going to talk about the difference next week on just that immediate transition to revenue sharing, NIL possibilities, et cetera, and how that changes, in your mind, changes the perspective for a player when, in fact, you didn't have those kind of opportunities 25 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen.
It's crazy to say that 25 years ago.
Yeah, I know, man. Yeah, but dude, I'm 71. You're not anywhere close. Anyway, but the incomparable Matt Wilhelm will be back again next week. We'll talk about the Big Ten championship game, the college football playoffs, and of course, more. Chapter 48 in the life of Mason Wilhelm and his dad.
There you go.
But
yes,
hey,
sir.
Matt, thanks for joining me again, my man.
Of course. Thank you, Tim.
Always great visiting with Matt Wilhelm. You could tell, he's pretty fired up about his alma mater, getting things done against Michigan. Like he said, he was 2-2 against the team up north, as they call it, against Michigan in his career. And but we all know his second of those 2 wins propelled Ohio State into the BCS championship game against Miami, where Ohio State held sway out in Tempe, Arizona, Sun Devil Stadium. One of the great victories, of course.
Yes, it was said to be impossible for Ohio State to beat that.
One of the great victories in Ohio State history. But
machine.
But the bottom line is, like he said, Ohio State. He's very impressed by the way this team just continually, methodically takes care of business. And you can say, I don't think it's been boring. I mean, but it's almost been like I've seen this movie before 12 times. About Ohio State just being ready for the most part. They haven't always gotten off to the greatest starts. They've had a hiccup here, a hiccup there.
True.
But by the middle of the second half, they're in control. Even against Texas, they were up 14-0. Texas came back and at least scored a touchdown, but didn't really come close to doing it again. You know what I mean? I mean, this defense, like, the old boa constrictor thing about this defense, they kind of take their measure and then they start rapping. And all of a sudden,
I like that.
Yeah. Michigan couldn't breathe in the second half, could not breathe.
But it's never, 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 ever boring. Not only when you beat your rival, but when you beat them on their field.
Yeah.
To me, that might be the ultimate, other than a championship.
Yeah.
To get their fans walking out the door late third quarter and you start to see it. Yep. There they go. They're done. They know it.
And Ohio State did it in the final analysis, finally just played keep away by running the football after getting 3 lightning strikes from their wide receivers, which definitely they had the superiority in that realm. But, I thought Ohio State was pretty much the best team all the way across the board. I know that's saying the sun is hot, but it is true, right? In that game.
Yeah. No doubt.
But to think that the traditions of college football don't mean anything to the modern player, and especially the way people are trying to take tradition slowly but surely out of it. Like, should they play the Michigan game every year? I mean, of course they should. Yeah. Should it be at this time? Of course it should. As Ryan Day said, he wouldn't have it any other way. Everybody thinks, they built this, greatest
narrative,
greatest show on turf that they built. It kind of reminds you of the St. Louis Rams way back when. They were just a sweet team. As long as they were playing indoors or in pristine conditions, they were great. But Ohio State, like Ryan Day said in the post game, give me the Michigan game with it being cold and the snow coming down and blowing sideways. That's what you got on Saturday.
That's what he said pregame.
That's when you want to win that game, is when it looks exactly like the classics. Yeah. Right?
Slate gray sky.
They took care of business. You'll see the snow on the ground here because we'll give you a little tour with my GoPro as I followed some of the post-game celebration around down on the field at Michigan Stadium. And we may even add a few comments, because I know a lot of people listen to this on Spotify and other platforms. But this is the post game as my buddy Clay Hall and I saw it right after Ohio State's 27-9 victory over Michigan. Matt Patricia, Caden McDonald. Caden McDonald getting that hug from Matt Patricia. You can say in the man of the hour. Julian saying in Carnell Tate, or as he calls him, CT. Dave Adolph. Coach Matt Guerrero just went by in front of me, safety's coach. Kenyatta Jackson Jr. Boy, did he play a game, agreed. A sack, 2 tackles for loss. Shane Fielding, 2 field goals after last year. Liam getting that hug, Julian Say getting a hug from Ross Bjork, and then getting a hug from Caleb Downs. And then Caleb Downs and Ross Bjork hugging. Of course, Ross Bjork was happy. Anybody affiliated with his team should have been way happy.
That's big. That's big.
Yes.
To flush that toxicity
Yeah.
the last 4 years.
And it was toxic. Now they had to wait till Michigan went up the tunnel, because obviously it was Michigan's last home game of the season. And I thought that was handled extremely well, like you talked about, with the way they agreed that one team would go up and then the other.
I would say.
What we look right there in the middle, you've got Ryan Day with the president of Ohio State, Ted Carter. Ted Carter's never experienced Ohio State win over Michigan. He looks pretty fired up. And remember, this guy used to go on and off aircraft carriers in an F-14.
The quote of the day from Michigan head coach Jerome Moore was, "They beat us. They won, guys. They won."
Yeah. All the media there's all the media getting in on Tyler Bowen there right there with he and Ryan Day having a hug. And then going up this tunnel with Ohio State fans crowded all around. Pedro Shabola, hellacious game.
One of his,
Lorenzo Styles Jr., great game. We got big Pedro Shabola as I'm holding this camera well above my head. And look at the fans, man. They stuck around. They knew what was up. They knew it was history. We're going to hear from Ryan Day here in a minute. Just talking about, as I said, you got to be flowing with emotions right now. What are you feeling? And he had a chance to kind of go off, but he backed away from that. And by the way, as I told Carson Hinsman last week, the saying is blondes have more fun. And there he is going up the tunnel there. The tunnel's something else.
It's a legendary spot.
Yes.
Because
Ryan, there have to be all kinds of emotions floating through you right now. I mean, what are you thinking? I mean, the way this team came up here, took care of business, the streak is dead, etc. What's just going through your mind right now?
Well, I'm happy for our players. I'm happy for the coaches, all the fans who were at the game, and it was great to see all the fans, stay all the way towards the end and cheer on our team. And here in the OHIO, right here in the stadium, it was a great moment for our players. They deserve it. They worked hard. I thought they played really well and strong and physical in this game, and happy for our coaches. But again, like I said, the fans even who weren't here, they'll be able to wear that block O and stand a little prouder. And so that means a lot to me, it means a lot to the coaching staff, to the players, and my family. So, I've thought, as you can imagine, over the years, after winning this game, what I'd say in this press conference.
Yeah.
I'm going to save all those comments because I think the best thing to do is win with humility, and that's what we're going to do. And I think that's it speaks to our program. It speaks to what it means to be a Buckeye, and we wanted to take this rivalry game back this year. And so the way that our guys played certainly spoke to that, and they played with great passion and great physicality. And I'm just disappointed that we didn't get in down there and finish a couple of those drives early, or else the scoreboard would have looked even differently than it was. But that's the rivalry game, I'm just happy again for our players. It's a great win, and when you think about where we were at this point last year to all the way now, there's been a lot of great football, and it's all about our players. And let's talk about like Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and what Sean Barnhouse and Adam Stewart did to help them get to be able to play in this game. Just tremendous. I mean, if you really know how much work they put in to get on the field and how gutsy they are, and I'm sure the fans and everybody would just appreciate what they did in going out there and putting it on the line. And then how about the defense? Just the physicality at the line of scrimmage, running from sideline to sideline, making plays. It was just great. They had a great look in their eye. I don't think there was any doubt when we walked into the stadium what was going to happen.
Right next door, Joe.
Thanks.
Ryan, the first shot played to Jeremiah, the 4th and 5. Can you walk us maybe through the decision to go for it, and then to identify him, and just how important would to have those two guys?
When you get to this point of the season, there's just a lot of things on these weeks that, with Thanksgiving and how it works, you have to do a lot of walkthrough work towards the end of the week. And quite honestly, Jeremiah was very, very limited. So the way for him to play the way he did, with really not getting many reps all week, is just a tribute to him. And then, the throw that Julian made on that ball was tremendous. But that was a play that we had walked through. If we felt like the situation called for it at the right moment, you just never know what type of situations you're going to get in a game. So you have to have a lot of options. And some of the things you can practice, but some of them you can't. That wasn't a play that we got a ton of practice in this week really at all. But we talked about it, we walked through it, and that's, again, you got to give our guys credit for them putting it on the field. We felt like it was an aggressive call that we wanted to make in that moment, and so we did, and man, they put it on the field in a big way. But the protection was good, and obviously the throw and catch was excellent.
Over here to Austin. You talked about wanting to win with humility and show respect to the rivalry here, but you also talked about Tuesday what it would like to be in the locker room after this game and how that celebration would be. So what was it like? But I don't know what was said, that doesn't matter. What was the atmosphere in there?
It was, as you can imagine, just it'll be a great memory of mine, just being in there with those guys and enjoying the win and seeing them smile and knowing what they just did on the field. I'll leave what we said in the locker room until Bill writes another book and tells a story on this one, I guess. But no, it was just happy for our guys just to see the smiles on their faces and see the sense of accomplishment. The fact that we were going to play in this game really, really hard for the love of our brother, not for the hatred of our opponent. That wasn't what it was about, and that's what they did on the field today. And then all the hard work. And they have phones and they read things and hear things, and so they know how important this is, and this is the number one goal of our program. So to get this one checked, and now it gives us an opportunity to get to number 2, and that's in Indianapolis next week, and we're already fired up about that in the locker room.
Yeah.
There was a moment there I saw a video where Ryan was on the field and he called his only son over, RJ, who's the St. Francis de Sales quarterback, and they got a few snaps in there, and I guarantee you that sucker's going in his office or at home. Just the specialness of that. And then when I was reflecting just a little bit, both of his wins have come there.
Yep.
And so I'm sure he will be anxious to get one at home.
Yep.
As well. But that father-son, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, RJ was standing up there to the right in the press conference. He could, he had the beanie or the knit cap on or knit hat on, and I mean, imagine that family, man. Everything they've gone through in the last 12 months. You can't beat Michigan. You'll never beat Michigan. You need to move. You need to get away to now having a national championship ring and now gold pants coming your way.
Oh, yeah.
You've won 16 straight ball games as the head coach at Ohio State. The Buckeyes have won 16 straight, 12-0 this year with a bullet, and now they're going against undefeated, number 2 ranked Indiana for the Big Ten championship. We're going to be talking about that the rest of this week. We're going to have shows, of course, new shows on Wednesday and Friday. And by the way, we're going to do something. There's too big of a lull between when things get done on Saturday and when we tape a show on Monday. So you and I are going to do something for fanstreamsports.com from Lucas Oil on Saturday night, especially if Ohio State holds sway, because it's big moments. And, you got all these things to say, but you got to wait a day and a half, 2 days to say them. I mean,
that's why we
crazy.
go. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's why we're in the house.
But absolutely. But ladies and gentlemen, what a pleasure it was covering that game on Saturday at Michigan Stadium. I've been up there how many times? At least 20, maybe 22. I covered a couple of games up there before I started covering Ohio State football, as a matter of fact. And it's an interesting place to go to cover a football game, to be, because there are 112,000 people there, and it matters to both teams. Despite some of the rhetoric of the 90s, the game matters to both teams. And despite how some Ohio State fans took it for granted the first 20 years of the new century, boy, nothing like a losing streak to bring you back to reality that, the game matters. And Ohio State took care of business, as I like to keep saying. I know I say it too much, but I don't care. They took care of business, and they did it in a formidable, methodical way with a quarterback who clearly, as a redshirt freshman, Julian Sayin, has come of age and then some. So Saturday night in Lucas Oil, it's going to be, it's going to be Indiana, Ohio State. It's going to be Fernando Mendoza versus Julian Sayin. It's going to be
preview.
It's going to be Indiana's really good defense, but probably not as good as Ohio State's defense, and then all the other playmakers on each other's offense. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing that game. I think it could be a hell of a football game in any form or fashion. Agreed?
Yeah, I mean, if Ohio State's defense can suffocate this team, they got a hell of a shot to go back-to-back.
Yeah, I think Indiana's got the number 1 offense in the country
Yes,
going
sir.
in.
Yes, sir.
So until Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen, when we renew this relationship, I'm Tim May. That's Clay Hall. We will see you then.